The Joint Committee on Finance passed a motion for a $7.5 million grant to support a contract with BioForward and the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation. Now located in Madison, BioForward is the leader for the Wisconsin BioHealth Tech Hub, which has recently awarded $49 million in federal grants, solidifying the state's leadership in biohealth technology.
Budget process, we heard a lot about the changing identity of the state of Wisconsin, the demographic changes in Wisconsin and so forth, and rich in agricultural history and agricultural science. But this is an example where we can now establish a new identity, enhance an emerging identity in the area of biohealth.
BioForward says the grant will fuel projects to further personalize medicine, drive economic development, and enhance healthcare outcomes across the state. In that same meeting, the JCF also approved one-time transfers of funds within the Department of Corrections to address a projected shortfall of contract beds. The DOC will be transferring $2.5 million into its contracts and agreements appropriation as a result of higher than anticipated number of youth at Lincoln Hills and adult sentences.